Hello. It is Tuesday morning, and I got my thoughts together and wanted to kind of redo a video that I had actually recorded last week and decided that it wasn't exactly coherent and together enough, and I didn't really say things the way that I wanted to, so I didn't post it. It actually ended up being two videos because it was just so much. So I'm trying to be a little bit more together and more concise. I actually have a list of stuff, so hopefully it'll be that way. So what I want to talk about is basically related to stuff that's going on with me lately, conversations that Eric and I are having about starting a family. And I want to share this stuff because I feel like when I started thinking about this stuff, and this wasn't recently, this was like, in the last couple of years, when I started thinking about the possibility of having kids, you know, I tried to find information online, and there really wasn't a lot of information. And there certainly wasn't a lot of information from actual Lyme patients. And I'm specifically talking about like dealing with Lyme or tick-borne disease, because I feel like that's kind of unique, because unique related to like the rest of my conditions are not infectious. I don't really have to worry so much about passing it along. Whether or not it's hereditary, like that's a whole different story. But like, there's not a whole lot I can do about that. But the infectious component is a concern. So there wasn't a lot of information, and I did come across one blog called the Lyme Pregnancy Journal last summer that was like amazing when I found it, and I was so encouraged to actually find someone writing about their experience. And she actually wrote about her experience with two pregnancies, and both kids were healthy, and they had kind of a scare with one of them, and had a positive test, but ended up being fine. So that was great, and I'll post a link to her journal, to her blog, so you can check that out. But there really was not a lot of other information, so I want to share my stuff, and I'm already babbling on, and this may end up being two videos again, but hopefully it'll be more concise. So anyway, going back years ago, like 10 years ago, I didn't think that I would have my own kids. I thought that I would just adopt, because I didn't want to run the risk of passing this along to them. But the years went on, and I met the person that I wanted to be with, and I realized that it was actually really important to me to have my own kids, and not just have them so that they would be mine. Like that doesn't so much, like that's important to me, but that's not necessarily the only thing. It's that I want to have the whole experience. Like I want to be able to have the experience of being pregnant. I want to be able to have the experience of actually giving birth, and I want to have all of that. And I don't want to feel like, I feel like I've missed out on a lot of stuff being sick, and I don't want that to be one of the things, because that's such an important aspect of life, I think. And I mean, if I weren't able to do it, if I had to adopt, like that would be fine. Like I'd be okay with that. But it's possible to have a healthy pregnancy and have a healthy baby now. Like there's enough knowledge. So I talked with my doctor, and I'm not even down to what I've written on my paper. I talked to my doctor, and she said that it's perfectly that it would be perfectly safe, and you just have to be on a combination of at least 2 antibiotics that are safe during pregnancy. And I actually also watched a little YouTube clip that had Dr. Jones talking about that if you have babesia, you also have to be on Mepron for the pregnancy, which I do have babesia, although I've never tested positive for it, but I do have a clinical diagnosis. I'm not quite sure about Bartonella, which I also have. So that'll be a conversation I have with my doctor. So anyway, so this, like, lately, in the last month or so, I started researching how the medications that I'm on, which ones will not be safe during pregnancy, which ones would be safe. Just because, like, we at that point we're talking about, like, in the next year or something like that, and I wanted to be prepared, and I wanted to try to get off of the medications as soon as possible so that I would have as long as possible to adjust to being off of them. So I started doing that and researching that, and at the same time started kind of trying to look for a Lyme literate or Lyme friendly OBGYN around here, which, let me tell you, that is not an easy thing. I have not been able to find one. I live in the Northeast, and I have not been able to find one. People wanted to send me, people wanted to give me information about OBGYNs in, like, totally different parts of the country. Like, it just, hundreds of miles away. That wouldn't work. So I have not found an OBGYN, and I've kind of shifted my focus a little bit, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute, because that's a little bit further down. But so I was doing that and searching, trying to find someone, and in doing that, started reading pregnancy journals and pregnancy blogs and all of this stuff. And this was all, like, without really talking with Eric. Like, he kind of knew what I was doing, but we hadn't sat down and had, like, a real conversation about it. And while I was doing all of this, I kind of realized, you know what? I kind of want to do this sooner than we had talked about. So we sat down and we had a conversation, he and I, and we're now talking about a sooner time frame, and I'm not going to share the time frame and necessarily share the nitty-gritty details, but so I started doing more research, and these things kind of just, like, overlapped. I don't remember exactly the timing of everything, so my focus shifted from looking for a Lyme literate or Lyme friendly OBGYN to looking for a midwife. And it actually, I think, started because my counselor said something to me and said, "Oh, well, would you want to have a home birth?" And I don't remember exactly how she phrased it, but it was basically that question. And I think without even thinking about it, I was like, "Oh yeah, well, like, if I wasn't deemed to be, like, high risk, or if I didn't have to be somewhere else, then yeah, like, absolutely." And I think that comes a lot from my mom, who had home births. She had planned a home birth with my older sister, but ended up having to go to the hospital and have a C-section in the end. And then because of that, I had to fight really hard to have what's called a VBAC for me, which is a vaginal birth after cesarean. And so because of that, I had to be born in the hospital. And she had to fight extremely hard to have a doctor consider doing that. And she had to switch doctors when she was 7 months pregnant with me, because her doctor was like, "Well, how would you feel if I, at the end, wasn't comfortable with it?" And then with my brother, he was born at the midwife's house, and then with my younger sister, she finally had her home birth. So I think my mom's views and stuff, like, I have a lot of similar views to her. And one of the big things that I've realized in doing this research is that, like, I have enough medical stuff, and I don't want medical stuff to be involved in this, and I don't want to have to be fighting against interventions. Like, I don't want this to be something that involves medication. I want this to be natural. Like, I want to have a natural birth. And it feels a little bit strange to be doing all of this research and everything when I'm not pregnant yet. And, like, we're not even at the point where we're trying to get pregnant. But, like, I feel like doing as much research as possible, being as prepared as possible, is going to be good. And given that I have, medical conditions, it's that much more important to be that prepared. So anyway, so I started contacting midwives and birth centers, and was asking them if they had worked with Lyme patients and, you know, what their experience and knowledge was and stuff. And there's a birth center about a half an hour away from here. It's about 15 miles away from here. And they have worked with Lyme patients. It seems like a really nice place. There's another birth center that's about an hour away that also has worked with Lyme patients. And I would, you know, consider going there also, although it's farther. So anyway, so I have an appointment. Eric and I have an appointment to go tour the birth center and meet the midwives next Thursday, which I'm looking forward to. I think that that'll be good, and just to kind of be able to ask them questions and see if, you know, my medical conditions still allow me to have that kind of thing, that kind of birth, to either be at the birth center or be at home. So there's all of that. So, and so it's really encouraging that midwives have worked with Lyme patients before. And of course, I live in the Northeast, and around here there's a lot of Lyme, so it's not that surprising. But they're very open to, you know, working with my doctor, and so it's really encouraging. I don't know if I would still need to have an OBGYN. So that's another question for them. And I kind of I'm sharing this information because I want people to come along with me on this journey. And I, you know, want to share the information so that if other people are going through this same stuff, it might be helpful. So as I find out more information, I'll hopefully share it. So kind of the next step is I see my doctor in 2 weeks from yesterday, and I need to get off of any of the medications that would not be safe to be on during pregnancy, which are mainly, unfortunately, the medications that I'm on to help control my headaches, which are one of my bad Lyme symptoms. They were like my first really bad Lyme symptom. So I'm on Topamax and I'm on Neurontin. And the research that I've done indicates that neither of them are safe. The research that I've done about medications, there's not very many that are very clear that, like, you should not be on this, at least for the medications that I'm on. A lot of them are very much like, well, we don't really know, like, it might be harmful, we're not sure. So I would like to get off of as many of my medications as I possibly can. So that's going to be kind of a process. I don't know how long that's going to take. We'll see. But we're going to kind of go, hopefully, you know, with the one that's most important and, you know, go along that way. And we also have to look at my supplements. Like, there's not very much information out there about supplements. There's even less than there is about medications because they're not regulated the same way that medications are. So that's another aspect that we have to deal with. And I'm reading some books. Right now I'm in the middle of a book that's actually focused on, like, the 90 days before you conceive, the preconception period. That's really interesting and talks about your diet and the supplements and everything. And the other thing is that I will need to get off of the antibiotics I'm on and get on safe antibiotics for pregnancy. So that's kind of what's going on, and this is getting close to 15 minutes, so I need to stop. But so that's what's going on, and this is kind of the start of a new journey for me. So it's exciting, and I'll continue to share things as it comes up. And if people have questions, feel free to ask. And it's exciting. So hope you're all doing well, and I will talk to you soon.